Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over 10 cars in Grand Theft Auto Online that I feel like have really great interiors. Now in part I'm making this video to maybe, if by chance Rockstar Games is on YouTube, maybe remind them what a good car interior looks like. Because we've had great car interiors from Rockstar, but if you've seen the new ENUS Jubilee, you will know that it's a little bit disappointing to say the least. Anyway guys, let's get right into it, starting off with number 10. Alright guys, starting off we have the overflowed Entity XXR. Now this thing has a really basic but also a really cool interior. As you guys can see when we hop inside, there are some really cool carbon fiber insets all over the dashboard here, as well as if I crouch, you can see the overflowed logo on the steering wheel is actually quite detailed. Now unfortunately I can't really show you guys much else from the interior view, however there are a couple of buttons on the center console that are pretty detailed and look pretty cool. Overall I feel like the interior of this car is pretty good. Could be better obviously, but for what it is, I'm pretty happy with it, I gotta say. There's not really any complaints that I have about this thing, and of course you can change the interior color on this car, which is always an added bonus. Anyway guys, that is it for the XXR. Let's move on to the next vehicle. Alright guys, next up we have the Vapid Dominator GTT. Now the interior on this thing is obviously more old school looking. However, I do feel like Rockstar did a really good job with this interior. The amount of detail in the wood grain that you can see all over the car is just fantastic. Obviously it doesn't have a lot of carbon fiber or modern features or anything like that, but as far as an old car's interior goes, I think that Rockstar did a really good job with this thing. It feels authentic to me. It feels exactly how it should, to be honest. It's not very nice, but it is nice in its own way. It's sort of hard to describe really, but I think you guys will definitely appreciate what I'm trying to say. Of course, if you don't, let me know in the comments down below. Anyway guys, I think that's pretty much it for the GTT. Let's move on to the next car. Alright guys, next up we have the Invitero Cockette D10. This thing's interior is really awesome looking. You can choose the interior color on this vehicle, and it has a white accent no matter what you do, and I think it looks really great. As you guys can see, stepping into the car here, the interior on this thing is extremely detailed. Rockstar did a very good job with this thing. Just in the steering wheel alone, there are so many cool little details that you can see. There's a volume button on it, there's a call button on it, a source button, a radio setting button, all sorts of stuff. I think that it is an absolutely awesome interior. Obviously the speedometer and the RPM gauge are there as well, and there is a digital speed gauge as well, which is really cool. Of course, we kind of have the basic infotainment system and everything like that, but overall I feel like this is an absolutely great interior. I feel like Rockstar should maybe consider doing more things similar to this. Anyway guys, that is it for the Cockette D10. Let's move on to number 7. Alright guys, next up we have the Progen Italy GTB Custom. Now the GTB Custom has a pretty cool interior, similar to, you know, most of the Benny's cars realistically. A lot of these things have an insane interior, and this thing is absolutely no different. As you guys can see, there is carbon literally everywhere in here. There is tons and tons of buttons on the steering wheel. The dashboard is completely race kitted out. There's obviously gauges everywhere in this thing. There's switches everywhere. There's buttons everywhere. Overall, the interior of this vehicle is just so cool. It has a roll cage, all that sort of stuff, and of course it has a boost gauge. I don't really think that you can customize the interior color of this thing too much. Of course you can make it carbon, which is very cool, and you can change the seat color, but I'm pretty sure the seat color just goes to whatever the body color is. Anyway guys, the Progen Italy GTB Custom has a very cool interior. Let's move on though to another car. Alright guys, next up at number 6 we have the Karin 190Z. This thing's interior is actually very impressive. I think Rockstar killed it, and I think they should really consider putting this interior into a few more sports classic sort of cars. As you guys can see, the seats are very well detailed. You can even see a seat belt right there. The door cards are also very well detailed. Of course, we have a 5-speed transmission here, and we've got all the dials and such. Let's hop inside. We actually have Karin branded floor mats in this thing as well. A cool little 190Z logo in the bottom right of the dashboard there. Obviously, we got the hand cranked windows in here, and we have a bunch of gauges on the dashboard. Now, in addition to that, obviously the RPM and the speedometer are also, you know, more old-fashioned looking. The steering wheel is definitely very retro. There's these lights all over the dash. I'm not even sure what those would really be for, maybe check engine lights and stuff like that. I'm really not sure. But as you guys can see, I think this interior is just awesome. I think that Rockstar really needs to consider making more interiors like this. And I want to show you guys the floor mats. I think that is such a cool feature with this car. It's such a weird, dumb little thing, but it honestly just makes the car seem so much more real, I guess. It's very cool. I absolutely love the interior of this car. I think that Rockstar needs to do this way more often. Anyway, guys, let's move on to number 5. All right, guys, next up, of course, we had the Elegy Retro Custom, another Benny's vehicle. So obviously, you know, the customization is going to go pretty crazy with this thing. Now, albeit the customization is not that insane, and the interior to begin with is also not that insane. However, I could have gone for a full carbon dash on this car. I decided to keep mine more of a street sort of stock look, but of course you can add the boost gauge, you can change the color of the dials as well, and of course you can change the steering wheel out. Now, is it the coolest interior? No, by no means. However, it is really, really, really cool. I like that the doors are mostly carbon fiber, but they do have the red inset there because that is my interior color that I have chosen. And if I get out of this thing, you can also see in the bottom, because I have the stripped interior, you can see the pedals are all like that with the exposed frame of the car, which is very, very awesome. Obviously, we have a e-brake there as well that you guys can see. And in the middle of the vehicle, you can see we have a nitrous kit, which is very, very cool as well. And on the passenger side, there is a fire extinguisher mounted to the floor. So I just think all of those features are really, really cool. Obviously, we have a very, very under-textured sort of center console there towards the bottom of the dash, which is kind of a little bit lame, but I feel like the rest of the interior of this car makes up for it completely. Anyway, guys, that is it for number 5. All right, guys, the next vehicle we have is the ENUS Deity. Now, the Deity just came out with the contract DLC, obviously, and Rockstar kind of proved to us that they still know how to make a semi-decent interior in a vehicle. As you guys can see, this thing still has a decent interior. It's really not that bad. Certain parts of it are colorable, like the door cards there, some of the seat, and most of the dashboard. And obviously, if we step outside of the vehicle here, we can get kind of a better look into the interior here. Now, is it the greatest interior ever? Absolutely not. By no means is it. However, I do feel like the placement of the colorable parts is quite good, which makes the interior of this thing a little bit unique. Now, of course, it is an automatic transmission in this thing. There is only one cup holder, unfortunately. Overall, the interior kind of feels like it's supposed to be really modern, but also not really modern at the same time. It's kind of strange. That's just how it is, I guess, with this car. Overall, though, I am pretty impressed with the interior. I don't think that Rockstar, you know, did a bad job with this car. Could they have done a little bit better? Yes, of course. But for what it is really, really not that bad. Anyway, guys, that is it for the ENUS Deity. Let's move on to number 3. Alright, guys, and at number 3 we have the ENUS Jubilee. Super well known for how good its interior is, and I'm just kidding, it's not the ENUS Jubilee. Alright, guys, and next up we have the Dubocci Spectre Custom. Now, this thing actually technically kind of shares an interior with the ENUS Deity. However, this one's interior is a lot cooler. So guys, hopping inside, of course, we have the full carbon interior within the Dubocci Spectre, and my oh my, it does look so much better than in the ENUS Deity. However, the Deity still looks really good. This thing just looks a ton better. If you get the regular Spectre, of course, you can change all of this to be the regular sort of colors, and of course, you can change the interior color with that. Overall, this thing's interior is very, very impressive to me. Of course, it's also quite similar to the Progen Italia GTB that we covered earlier. However, it is just a little bit better looking in my opinion. I think that Rockstar killed it with the interior of this thing. I would love to see more cars use this sort of style interior and give us a few more customization options within the inside of these vehicles. Anyway, guys, that is it for number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Alright, guys, next up, you might have seen this one coming. We have the Chariot Romero hearse. Now, the hearse's regular interior in the front is really not that impressive. It is nothing special at all. There are so many cars in the game that actually share this interior, of course. However, what I am more referring to is what is in the back of this thing, of course, which is actually a coffin. Now, on the inside, it's not the most detailed ever, but you can see there is a sort of velvet lining within the back of this thing. And of course, we have the wreath right here. On the front of of it, and we have one on the back of the coffin. Now we have the coffin itself, which is reasonably well detailed. It's not that great from really close up. However, if you're standing back, definitely it does look a little tiny bit better. I do think that this is a really cool interior, and I think that Rockstar should definitely consider doing more things like this. Obviously not making hearses, but doing creative sort of things with other vehicles. Obviously, we've got the curtains here that you can block out, all the light going into the back of this thing. There's all sorts of cool little things with this car. Obviously, at Halloween time, we have the other hearse, which has a dead body in the back of it, and it's actually a zombie, and they're actually kind of reaching out of the coffin, which is really cool. I would love to see Rockstar do some more sort of Easter egg style things like that. I think that would be just awesome to see. Anyway, guys, that is it for number 2. Let's move on to the number 1 vehicle. All right, guys, and the number 1 vehicle we have is the brand new Patriot mil-spec. This thing has an interior that I don't believe has been in any other vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now, of course, hopping into this thing, we have a cross hatch sort of pattern on all of these seats within this thing, and even on the bottoms of the door cards. We have it on the glove box as well here, and as you guys can see, there is tons and tons of detail within the inside of this thing. Now, I'll be honest, of course, there isn't as much detail as there are in some of the other cars on this list. However, I do feel like the interior on this thing is completely unique. I don't actually think that this is on any other vehicle in all of Grand Theft Auto Online. If I'm wrong, of course, please correct me in the comments down below. We also have this really cool radio in the middle center console of this vehicle. I also do find it really cool that the center console on this thing is so wide. You don't really see that on many vehicles in this game. I also like the multicoloring of the armor plating on the windows in this thing versus the regular black that's covering most of the interior in this vehicle. Obviously, we have the roof handles that you can hang onto here. We've got some lights in the roof as well. Overall, the Patriot mil-spec just has a really great interior, I feel like. I would honestly like to see this interior inside of a new Dubsta if we ever get one into the game. I think this would be a pretty dope interior, but overall, I do feel like it is a pretty decent starting point. Anyway, guys, that has been 10 great interiors that I have found within Grand Theft Auto Online. Of course, if you guys have any recommendations of your own, let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure you guys know some cars that have absolutely fantastic interiors, and especially tell me if the interior is completely unique to a single vehicle. If it's in a couple of other vehicles, like the Cockette D10's interior, for example, that one's not exactly a super unique one, but it is still really nice looking. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like if not dislike, subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.